Hi, my name is Liz, and I'm the ambassador for Southern Connecticut for Dress a Girl Around the World. I've been organizing sew-a-thons for several years. We've done a number of them in my community. We've made over 1,000 dresses, and we have so much fun at these sew-a-thons, I can't even tell you. We make lunch, and we talk, and we make dresses, and we have a great time. They're a wonderful service project. If high school students participate, they get service hours for it. Girl Scouts can participate as a service project. And the organization as a whole is a wonderful cause. Dress a Girl Around the World has been in existence since 2006. They've delivered over 500,000 dresses to 81 countries. When you're making these, you want to pretend you're making it for yourself so that you would be proud to wear it, because it's going to a girl who often has nothing and she wants to feel good about wearing this dress. So you want the best quality into it. So today we're going to take you through how to make a sundress, formerly known as a pillowcase dress. And first, what I'm going to do is take you through the materials for the dress and the equipment you need to make them. So now I'm going to take you through all the materials you need to make the dress, and as well as the equipment that you need to sew the dress. Over here, we have our cotton fabric, 100% cotton for the dress, and this will be for the pockets. We have our double fold extra wide bias tape for the straps that are going to tie the dress on. This is our 1/2 inch elastic for the casing on the front and back of the dress. This is our little Dress a Girl tag that goes on every dress on the pocket. And you sew that on the pocket before you put the pocket on the dress. In terms of equipment, we have a rotary cutter and a mat that you can use. If you don't have a mat, it's not to worry, you can use scissors. This is a handy tool. You can also make just a cardboard template for cutting the pockets out. They come out nice and square. This goes with the rotary cutter. You always need a tape measure. And this is a handy little tool. It's chalk that you can outline the pattern piece on the dress to cut the armhole out. For other equipment, we also need a sewing machine, an iron and ironing board, straight pins, scissors, and a ripper. Rippers are essential. You make mistakes. It happens. It's part of life. Bring your ripper, because you may have to remove a pocket because you forgot to put the tag on. And it's way easier to sew that tag on before you put the pocket on. So this is an equipment that you will find very handy. And that's all the equipment that you'll need for this project. And it's a lot of fun. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ellie. She's a local Girl Scout, and she's going to demonstrate how to sew a sundress for Dress a Girl Around the World. So Ellie's going to measure 19 inches. She needs 18 inches for the width, so she's going to add an extra inch in for her seam allowance. And she'll cut that. As I said, you can use a rotary cutter or scissors, whatever you're comfortable with. So Ellie's going to show you how to make a French seam now. Basically, the dress, you're going to sew it up as if it were a tube. With the French seam, you put the wrong sides together. And she'll do a very narrow hem, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and sew that up. She's doing a back stitch to reinforce, which is very important. You want everything to be sturdily sewed. The dress can be pinned, or it's just a straight stitch, so you don't have to pin it if you don't want to, but you have the option of pinning it if you're working with a cotton that seems to be slippery. But usually 100% cotton sticks together pretty well. And she's back stitching at the base as well. The next thing Ellie is going to do is she will iron this flat, or turn it right inside out, and iron it so that she can stitch up the inside another seam, and that seam will be completely enclosed. So Ellie's got a nice narrow seam here. She's going to turn the fabric inside out, and where the seam is, she's going to iron it nice and flat so she can do another seam right over that to completely encase the original seam. And that way there's no unfinished edges on the dress. Ellie's going to show you the back half of the French seam. She's going to finish it off. We've put in the first seam, wrong sides together. Now we've got the right sides together, and she's back stitching at the top to reinforce. And she's going to sew all the way down, encasing that original seam. And again, she's back stitching at the bottom as well, just to reinforce it. You want a sturdy dress. And she's going to trim her threads nice and short so there's no excess threads hanging off. Okay, so the next step, cutting-wise, is we're going to prepare the fabric for cutting the armholes. Ellie's going to iron it flat, iron the 2 creases, which will be the sides, and that way she can line those up to cut. And she's going to also iron down that seam we just put in so it's nice and flat and easy to work with. But by preparing, ironing everything flat, it just makes everything easier to work with. So she'll iron both sides to get those creases so when we cut the armholes, everything's even. So Ellie's ironed the dress. She's now folded it over so that the 2 sides are together with that nice fold that she ironed in there. And she's outlining the armhole template, which is the only pattern piece in the dress. And she's giving it about 1 inch at the top to make sure she has enough room for the casing that will come next in the next phase of sewing this dress. And it's great, saves time by doing 2 at once, and then they're both the same size. Okay, so Ellie's now going to put in iron her hem. You iron down about 1/4 inch, make sure it's nice and secure down there. And then we will roll it up again about 1 inch to get the finished hem, and that way the unfinished edge is not exposed. So now we've got our 1/4 inch initial iron over of the hem, and we're going to put a 1/2 inch, which we will eventually sew. And that way we have a completely enclosed, no unfinished edges. It's very important because you never know the washing conditions that these dresses are going to be cared for in. And so that way if it is a rock or a river, it's going to have a nice finish and will stay together and last a long time. Okay, so now Ellie's going to put an iron in her casings. We're going to do a iron over about 1/4 inch so that we don't have an exposed area. And then she'll fold that over and do a good inch. You're using 1/2 inch elastic to go through the casing tunnel. So she'll measure and turn over so she has a full inch to get through there with the 1/2 inch elastic. And we do that on the front and the back. Okay, so Ellie's she's going to do the back casing, which involves your folding over that seam, which sometimes can be uncooperative. So you may or may not have to use a little steam to get it to stay down. But she'll put the initial 1/4 inch fold in there, iron that down, and then so I usually start from the seam just because that's the trickiest part in getting it to lay down flat. And then she can go out to each side and then fold over her 1 inch to do the complete encasing, and then we'll move on to the elastic that goes through the casing. Ellie's got all the presses in for the hem and the casing at the top, so she's going to sew in her hem. And she's reinforcing it with her back stitch, which is very important. Back stitching again to reinforce that hem. Ellie's going to sew the front casing now. Once again, reinforcing with the back stitch. Back stitching at the very end of the front casing. And Ellie's going to do the back casing. Also reinforcing every time by back stitching. And the only little tricky part with the back is the center seam that runs down the back. You want to make sure it's lying down the same direction that the hem went so that it's nice and smooth, but Ellie did a great job of ironing it so it is nice and flat. And when you do the casing, it's a lot easier to get the elastic through if it's lying nice and flat. And back stitch, beautiful. So now Ellie's measuring her elastic, which is going to go through the casing. The front side is 6 inches long, and the back side is going to be 7 inches long because as you grow, your back takes up a little more space. Our posture gets worse, so we have a little more room in the back than we do in the front, or with the larger size elastic. So now Ellie's got her pin and her elastic. She's going to check her hem seam in the back to see which way it's folded so that she can put the pin with the elastic in the other side so it doesn't get caught up in the back seam. And she'll feed that in until she gets the elastic to just the edge of the armhole on her left. And then she's going to stitch that in to secure it, and we'll finish putting the rest of it through after that's secured. And this is a stress point, so she's going to sew it several times back and forth to be sure that it's securely in there and it's not going to come undone. Once again, trimming all her edges so that you don't have any loose threads hanging off. Ellie's going to finish threading the elastic through the casing. And it will get, you'll gather it a little bit at the top so that you can lay the elastic so it's just even with the edge of the armhole. She's going to remove the pin so she doesn't break her needle sewing through the pin. And then keep that edge right on the edge of the armhole. And sew through just like she did on the other end several times to completely secure it. So now Ellie's going to repeat the same process on the front casing with the shorter piece of elastic, securing both ends. So now Ellie's going to measure her bias tape for the straps on the arms, and the bias tape should be 34 inches for the dress size that she's making, which is a size 5. So she'll measure out 4 inches and then make a second piece. You need 2 lengths at 34 inches. Ellie's going to pin the bias to her armhole. You find the center point of the bias tape and you get the armhole around it, and you can pin it or you can freeform it. So Ellie's going to pin hers to keep it secure, and then she'll do the other side, getting the dress into the crotch of the bias tape. And you can use as many or as few pins as you like. Some people don't pin it at all. But it is nice to have it secure, because it very easily slips out. This is probably the hardest part of making this dress, is attaching the bias tape and then sewing it so that it catches the fabric of the dress and the bias tape on all sides. And you can either pin the other side or you can start sewing it, because you have to sew in two directions. You start at the bottom and work your way up, so that way you're sure that the bias tape is centered and you don't end up with a bunching in the base of the armpit. And now that she's got that secured on there, she'll start from the center point and sew up one side all the way out to the length of the strap, and then fold over and reinforce the end of the strap, and then we'll go to the other side. So let's take a look at how Ellie does that. Ellie has attached her bias tape to her armhole, and she's sewing it, attaching it with the machine, and back stitching to secure it. We'll sew it all the way out to the end, removing pins so she doesn't break her needle. And when she gets to the edge of the fabric, before she sews on, she's going to reinforce that. Where the end where the fabric is, it's going over the casing as well as the elastic. So sometimes it's a sticky point and you have to kind of help it go through. But it will go through, just go slow and it goes through. And it's reinforced there because that's another stress point and you want to be sure the dress is secure. Then she'll go all the way out to the end of the bias tape. And before she gets to the end, she's going to fold it over so that once again we have no exposed unfinished edges. So she'll fold it and then the end down, open up the bias, fold it over, and then stitch it all the way to the end so that it's just got a little hem at the end. And then back up and reinforce that once again. So Ellie's going to cut some pockets now, and she's going to show you a shortcut how to, one, make sure they're the same size, and you can cut two pockets at one time. So she folds the two ends, because you always want a closed end at the top of the pocket, or the fold is at the top of the pocket. Then she evens those up, and she'll use her template and the chalk to make an outline. You can also, if you don't have chalk and you have a rotary cutter, you can just use the template as the edge to cut the pockets with the rotary cutter as well. But this saves a lot of time, and it pretty much ensures that both pockets will be even and the same size, so you'll have a matching set. And the pockets should always be minimum 5 inches. This is a 6-inch template that we've used, so you'll have plenty of allowance for seam. The pockets are, I consider it almost like a pocketbook. They put their things in it. When we pack out the dresses, we put a new pair of underwear and a nice little toy in there for the girls. So she's now got 2 perfectly matched pockets. Okay, so Ellie cut out her pockets earlier, and she's going to turn them inside out, or fold them inside out, and sew around the 3 edges. And when you're doing the pockets, you always need a double layer, and you're going to have the fold will be the top of your pocket. Because after she sews these, she's going to leave a little opening on the bottom so she can turn the pocket right side out. She'll leave a needle in so she can turn the pocket. And she'll leave the needle in, or actually take the needle out and pull it forward about an inch. You need about an inch or so to actually be able to turn the pocket right side out. And back stitching to make sure it's secure. Now she's finished sewing the pocket, and she's going to use that 1-inch hole she left at the bottom of the pocket to turn it right side out. And you can trim off the corner edges just to make it a little easier to get the corners to poke out when you get to that stage, but it's not absolutely necessary. And sometimes it's easier if you use the scissors to poke out the corners. That way you get them nicely squared. And, you know, maximize, you want to get that 5-inch at least size pocket on there. And we did a 6-inch template, so we should be in good shape with that. Once she finishes poking the corners out, we're going to iron the pocket flat, and then we'll attach it to the dress. Now Ellie's ironing the pocket, and she's making sure that those little hems are tucked under so that they will lay flat when she irons it. And then when she goes to sew that on the dress, it's much easier. You're going to catch those when you're sewing the bottom part of the pockets on. Okay, so Ellie has now sewn the pockets and turned them right side out and ironed them nice and flat. And she's got her tag at the bottom of the pocket where you open in where she turned it. The fold of the pocket always goes to the top. And the next thing she's going to do is sew that tag onto the pocket. And it can go on the left or the right pocket. It's okay. But it's just important to sew it on before you put it on the dress, because otherwise it sews through the dress. And she's reinforced it on there nicely, so there's no chance it's going to come off. This tag serves as a little bit of a protection for girls wearing these dresses. It says they're affiliated with Dress a Girl organization, and sometimes it may make a predator or someone that wants to harm them think twice if they were to see the tag. Okay, so Ellie has attached the tag to the pocket, and she's getting ready to put the pockets on the dress. A little trick is using your template or your cutting measuring board to put underneath the dress, and that way you are able to pin into one layer of the dress without pinning the pockets to both layers of the dress. Just makes it a little trick. She's going to measure the dress about halfway down and then add 1 inch, and to determine the midpoint, and you want to go just below the midpoint to add the pockets. So she'll lay that out, and she's lucky she has checks, so it makes it a little bit easier lining those pockets up. And then for back side to side, it's about 3 inches in from the side of the dress. So she'll line that up, line the other side up, and we've got the fold at the top of the pocket and the open hole that we turn the pocket in at the bottom. So she'll pin those on. And generally 1 pin in each corner is good. Depends on the material you're using, but with this cotton fabric, 1 in each corner is the safe bet. Now she's got those pinned on nice and securely. And she'll be able to sew them. But before you sew them, you always want to check, because when it's laid on the table, it may look good, but once you hold it up, it could look very different. And it's always nice to have the pockets nice and straight and even. So it's always good visual tests. And those look nice and even. So I think we're ready to sew. Okay, so Ellie's going to attach these pockets now. Very important at the top of each side of the pocket that you reinforce it, because that's a stress, high stress. You got your hands in your pockets or things in your pockets are weighing on that. So it's a good idea to stitch that several times. And the other point is you want to catch at the bottom where you turn the pocket, you have an open seam there. You're going to stitch through that to catch it. So Ellie's just finishing her last pocket, and then we're going to take a look and see what the dress looks like. So here's Ellie's completed dress, and it looks so lovely. And in Southern Connecticut, what we do is we add a brand new pair of underwear to one pocket and a small toy to the other pocket, and that's what we consider a completed dress. I hope you enjoyed our video today. All patterns and written instructions are on our website. Please join us in sewing these dresses and helping girls around the world find dignity and joy in a dress made just for them, because every girl deserves at least one dress.